Hey, one more thing before you go. Spiritual journey, loss, grief, breath work, conscious uncoupling, and somatic healing. We're going to have an open and honest conversation with a woman who has experienced all of this after losing her mother when she was just 15 years old. She's now capable of transforming your life into a new direction with all these skills that she has. I'm your host, Michael Herst. Welcome to One More Thing Before You Go. This is The Thing About the Somatic Healer. My guest in this episode is Tara Jones. Her work in the realm of body, mind, heart healing through transformational coaching, breathwork, and massage therapy through her organization, Makia Rising, is something that will make you improve your life in all areas. Her love of the body started at an early age through dance and art, finding the freedom to express herself and an avenue to release her creativity. We have some things in common. She especially found movement and self-expression essential during her teen years, healing from the hardship and grief after her mother passed away at age 15. This pull towards healing naturally led to Feldenkrais method in the yoga studies in college, continuing to deepen her fascination with the mental and emotional connection it has within the body and the somatic healing that can happen when we consciously bring love and attention to ourselves. Tara's passion for whole body wellness really solidified once she began her deep studies of meditation and eventually entered into the healing arts field as a massage therapist, breath guide, and transformational coach. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. Welcome to the show, Tara.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
You know, you have an amazing journey getting to where you got. Like I said, we have some things in common. I'm really excited to kind of talk about those areas and explore them, but I always like to start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up?
Well, I can never really claim a place because I grew up with some wandering hippies in the 70s. And so we definitely have, I moved a lot in my life, and so it's been unfolding. It was great. It gave me a lot of culture early on. But yeah, I don't really claim a place. My father lives now in Hawaii, and we did have a bit of time in my childhood in Hawaii. And so I frequent there often.
I love Hawaii. Hawaii is our go-to place.
Oh, yeah. It's a special, special place. I'm very lucky that I have a place there to visit.
Yeah, absolutely. We go there.
And I will just throw it in there. That's the reason for my name, Makia Rising. It means energy flows where your attention goes. And it's one of the 7 Huna principles of Hawaii. And because it's such a special place in my heart, I decided to name my business after there. So
I'm happy for that. That's very nice. That Hawaii is that's my healing place. We love to go to Hawaii. We go to Maui, is where we go to. And that's where my wife and I reconnected. That's where we go there to relax and connect with nature. And that's my go-to place.
It's very powerful energy there. You can feel it as soon as you step off the plane.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's in everything people do and say, and in the food, and in the culture, and in the music, and the dancing, and everything that goes along with it. It all connects in the water, in the grass, in the mountains.
Yeah. And I mean, right now, the Big Islands, this is where my father is living, and that's where the live volcano is, and it just started erupting again. So It is a pretty intense place where it's like right straight with like Earth creation. Is pretty wild.
That's pretty crazy. That's pretty cool. Got a little off track because I get excited about Hawaii. What was your family like as you grew up?
Like I said, it was during the 70s. It was definitely that era of be here now, live off the land, kind of I would say a lot of childhood was like an experiment of parenting a different way. It was full of creativity and play. It had its dark sides and light side, as all experiments do. But I'm really thankful in a lot of ways for how I was raised. It was a very free environment, and very connected to nature. And I think that's probably the start of my interest in spirit is my childhood.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I do. I have a younger brother who's 7 years younger than me, but we're very close. We are one of the family values was definitely staying tight and close to each other and doing activities, always eating dinner together. When you slow life down and be more in the moment, you can really have those deep connections. And I think that value has kept us close over the years.
That's always a good thing. I think family needs to get back together again. Family needs to understand that family comes first, I think. And unfortunately, in today's society, I see more and more where that's getting lost. So
yeah. That's one of the things I'm always telling clients, to just put our phones down and connect into the moment, connect into simple things like eating dinner together and taking walks. These are, having long conversations, and this time during the pandemic with COVID, and especially the lockdown, I think we got to see the benefits of really slowing it down.
Yeah, that's a fortunate. I would say that's a fortunate benefit of COVID, because it allowed everybody to take a breath and understand that maybe what they were doing was not quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
And then once they got to realize, and they took that breath and they realized that certain things were more important in their lives, it allowed that breath to kind of, realize that maybe this is really what's normal and a better,
or what is our normal? Like what is my normal? I don't need to just be told what's normal, but I can create what's good for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. 100%. You and I have a lot in common. You lost your mother when you were 15 years old. I lost my father when I was 17. So that's pretty close, along that area. How'd you lose your mother?
Developmental years. My mom got breast cancer when I was about 12 and went through a whole healing process, but unfortunately lost to cancer when I was 15, and she was, I believe, 43, so pretty young. I'm now 47, so I thought she was an old lady when I was back in the teens, and now I realize how much she was just starting her life.
Yeah, I think that I look back on my teenage years and thought 35 was old until I reached 35 and went, this is not old.
Yeah, it's so young.
Yeah, we try to backtrack a little bit on that thought.
Yeah.
So you went to college?
Yep, I went to college. I would definitely say my mother passing away was life-changing, and as it always is with death, I believe. And so I did go to college, but I definitely had a certain perspective at that point. And I would say a certain leaning towards understanding life deeper and really being able to express my hardship and my pain through dance and creativity. But I mean, like I said, at a young age, I think I had, now that I look back on it, I think I definitely had a sense and curiosity towards spirit, or something larger to myself. When I was a child, it was more like interest in magic and being one with nature. And then after my mom died, I just started reading a lot of books, and I started getting interested in meditation. And I mean, honestly, late teens, early college, taking mushrooms and having pretty profound experience of oneness, that I wanted to understand how to do that without taking mushrooms, like how to sustain that feeling of oneness and being what I would say closer to spirit and not so identified in my physical form. So yeah, and then I went through college. I actually majored in education and double majored in dance and photography, because that was my area of interest at that point. But when I graduated college, I just realized teaching wasn't exactly what I was wanting to be doing, and so I went back to school for massage therapy.
And interesting that you're taking from the experiences that you had, even with the mushrooms, you basically decided to take a more holistic or naturopathic approach to healing mind, body, and soul, like in totality, right?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's been a slow evolution of my work. I don't think at that point I was really understanding completely what I was doing. When you're struck with life, when it's going in one direction, especially, definitely, our parents are our foundation of reality, and when all of a sudden it gets flipped on its head and it gets sent in another direction, you're really in survival mode of trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And I mean, I really didn't start processing this into my late 20s of the emotional upheaval that happened in my teens. But I just know that I can see in retrospect, I was trying to understand what happened to me, what happened to my family, but also just life itself. Like, it really woke me up to how life is precious, and it's not something to take for granted, that you can lose your life tomorrow or today, and to live life as full as you can. So I think all these practices I was starting to become interested in was through this kind of survival experience I was going through.
Yeah, I think those of us that have gone through loss, especially of a parent at a young age, and in a very like you said earlier, I was a teenager, you were a teenager. I hadn't seen my father since he was 15. So since I hadn't seen him since I was 15, and then we get the phone call that he passed, it was something that stuck with me for, I'm going to give my age away now, stuck with me for like about 40 years, 45 years before I finally was able to actually really settle down and deal and understand that in what happened and why it happened. It takes a while for us sometimes to come around to that, because we hide from it. And, sometimes we don't always like to look at it right in front of our face. We kind of push it down, suppress it, and say life goes on or life moves on. And and I know that death, unfortunately, is handled a little bit differently in this country than it is in some other countries. It's almost a taboo subject to talk about, which is unfortunate, because I think people
Yeah.
need a wider discussion in regard to that. One more thing before you go. The whole reason it was done was because there's always one more thing before you go, and life can change in an instant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I feel like sometimes healing process is lifelong. I mean, there's still stuff I'm learning about myself from that experience and it really, in a lot of ways, identified me, um, and still triggers me.
Yep.
It will come out of a situation that is not even related to my mom passing away, but it is a death. It is like when things end suddenly, it really affects me. So it's been a lifelong process of understanding myself, and I'm still learning. But it's given me an avenue to have deep empathy and a high level of being able to work with people that are going through transition. And that's primarily what I do when I'm transformational coaching and breath work guiding. Is I'm working with people that are in heavy transition, whether it be someone passing away or losing your job or moving or divorce. It's these heavy times that you're identified. You don't realize you're identified with these structures, and when they fall away, it's like a lot of times you're kind of just shaken to your core. And to have someone be able to hold that space for you and listen and hear you during those heavy transitions is so important. And I'm honored. I'm so honored to be in this position to be able to work with people during those delicate times. So,
yeah, it's a very positive thing. I think it gives opportunity for people to, again, talk about it, I think, and feel it, because sometimes we don't allow ourselves to feel that. You suppress it, and you're not supposed to. Guys have a tendency to I'm a man, I'm not supposed to do that. And what they don't realize is you're a human being first, and you really need to do that. So that's
yeah, and I'll just add on, like, it's not our fault that we do that, because that's just been taught to us.
yeah.
A lot of times we don't even know how to feel it.
Well,
There
exactly.
like
Yeah.
emotional response, there's so much intensity, and usually we're feeling the top layer of the emotional intensity, which is either sadness or anger, these high level emotions. But when we're actually taught and guided into lower and lower levels, you can get a deeper depth. So a lot of times it's that response is to repress the high level intensity. The nervous system and the body's saying, this is way too much, I can't handle it.
And that can happen, like you said, in anything. It doesn't have to just be death. It could be the loss of anything. You talk about your, see if I make this correctly, conscious uncoupling during your divorce. That's the first time I've actually heard that. Is that did you utilize this kind of a process to help you work through your divorce?
Yes, and that's still ongoing. It's been about 3 years, maybe even going on 4 now. I honestly didn't know that term either. We didn't know that term when we went through it. And then I discovered there's all kinds of books around it. And so there's a lot of information about unconscious or conscious uncoupling. But basically, we were such close friends, and we still are close friends and love each other. And we both just realized that life changes and people grow, and as sad as it is to let go of each other, the biggest thing that we wanted to hold on to is respect and love of each other, and just that the realization that our identity was changing. And I'm not saying it's an easy process at all. It's actually one of the most challenging processes I went through, besides my mom dying. I mean, it was a death. But yes, it is about holding space and understanding multi layers of complexity and emotion for both my partner at the time and me. And it was a challenging process, but so worth it in the end, because he's still in my life and I'm still in his, and we can love and support each other as friends.
Yeah, that's a very good thing. It is. We have that in common also. I have an ex-wife, and my ex-wife and my current wife are friends. I just pointed over there like she's over here. She's not here. She's at work. See how unconscious we are?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Unless there's a ghost over here I'm not aware of. I worked domestic violence for like 4 years at a domestic violence task force. And, when I got into that, it showed me a different perspective of life. Obviously, because we dealt with the worst of domestic violence that was out there. And it's amazing what people can do to each other, emotionally as well as physically. And always made a promise that, would never happen. I grew up in a dysfunctional family, and I understand from that perspective as well of what can happen. So from that, I made a promise to myself, and my ex-wife did the same thing. And, we're still friends to these days. And my kids are friends with her kids. And, we feel we're just people, and it just didn't work out. And, if it wouldn't have been right, I wouldn't have the two wonderful daughters we have now, and she wouldn't have the wonderful boy that she's got. So, it's kind of, sometimes things work out, sometimes things don't. And when they don't, you don't need to be nasty and mean, and you can be a human being again.
Yeah, and it takes a process of grieving. It's not something that happens overnight. And what I noticed, it was a grieving not towards losing him, because I knew I wasn't losing him, but it was a grieving towards a life that I had projected into the future and attached myself to.
Right.
And again, it's when you are going down a path that you believe, like our mind is always oriented towards the future. So it has this idea of what life is going to look like. And when it flips itself on its head and it goes in a whole other direction, there's a complete emotional response. I mean, the whole part of the nervous system is to keep us regulated. So you go through a huge amount of intensity, but that process of grieving and getting to know yourself deeper. And then also what you brought up, I love, it sounds like, and it's something I really hold dearly to myself, is gratitude for what I had with him and him in my life. And then also acceptance for what is happening, when you can actually accept that this is the truth of what's happening at the moment. So you hold that knowledge with gratitude and love as much as you can. And it's not every day, doesn't look like all cheerful and beautiful, but over time, it really is the guiding light to get you through the darkness. And again, that's what I do in my work, is to actually hold that space so I can be reminding people, because every day is intense during that process. And even now, Dan is my ex-husband. Dan and I still can have some pretty heavy conversations that we have to hold for each other.
And I think that's life.
Yeah, that's life. And again, it's a continuing to learn about myself in this lifetime. So, and I feel very grateful, very honored.
Speaking of that, if you don't mind, you have a thing that you say. So what does it mean when you say we are not broken? And it allows us to kind of heal from that perspective, that we are not broken no matter what the circumstance happens to be.
I'm glad you're bringing that up. Yes, this is something that's ongoing understanding in myself. It's, again, not daily, like I got it, but what I really like to do is lean into that with clients, because what I've noticed of being in the healing arts field for almost 22 years now is there's this deep feeling that something is wrong and we need to heal it and fix it. And so that really causes a divide in ourselves. And I feel if we can come from the perspective that healing is the journey itself, and it's not that we're broken and we need to fix ourselves and get better. It's actually just this slow uncovering and understanding who we are at a deep, deep core level. And so it comes from the perspective of, again, that love and gratitude for who you are. And then you're like just peeling back the layers like an onion, slowly peeling back the layers and getting to know yourself more. So that perspective of healing, and that we're not broken. Because there's something, when you lean back into spirit and into your soul, you realize, at least in my understanding and my belief, the soul comes into this life to experience life at a very deep level, on all levels, pain and suffering and joy and light. And it doesn't really, from that perspective, it doesn't have a preference. I mean, of course, no one wants to suffer. I certainly go through days where I'm like, no more, I don't want it. I don't want any more lessons. But it offers a lot more space to grow and learn and dive deep into yourself when you come from that perspective.
Now, is that part of the somatic healing? Can you help me understand what that is? Because be honest, I've been around the holistic and naturopathic healing for quite some time, and that's the first time that I've heard this. So I'm very interested in understanding how that all plays into this. Hey, just a real quick reminder. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being a part of the One More Thing Before You Go family. Please remember to subscribe and/or follow us. We would greatly appreciate it. We do have an app that's available for you for free. You'll find it in the App Store or on Google Play. It is compliments of Superpass, our sponsor. Anything that you want to do with your business to take it to the next level, have an entertainment or an information hub in the palm of your hand, it's Superpass. It will give you the unique opportunity for everything. One more thing before you go. Please take the time to support us by subscribing, following, and visiting our unique merchandise store at beforeyougopodcast.shop. You'll find that link to the store in our website. It is beforeyougopodcast.shop. You can find our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. And one more thing, beforeyougou.com. You will find links to your favorite platform to listen to the show, as well as the show notes for today's episode and contact information for our guest. And we appreciate you. Thank you for supporting and listening to us each and every week.
Somatic healing, so soma is a word that means the body. So somatic healing is being able, whatever practices you're doing, I find that breath work is an incredibly somatic healing practice, because it is using the body as the healing. A lot of times we want to come from the mind. So it's doing practices to sink into the somatic experience of the body. Then, because the body knows so much, the body is so intelligent, and it holds all of our life experience. So when we can sink into the intelligence of the body and get out of the mind, quiet the mind, there's so much that can be uprooted and healed.
And that's interesting. It's a very interesting perspective, I think, because most of us think about, especially, well, even from my own experience, I went into meditation. From meditation, I did breath work, but that was more to get into my mind. and to calm my mind and to get to a place where I could basically heal from that perspective. So the breathwork that you're talking about in the somatic healing, does that eventually take that all into kind of a mind-body-soul connection?
Yeah, it does. And I would actually argue that you used breath work to not get into your mind, that you actually accessed a deeper part. Like you because the brain, there's certain parts of the brain that are more our computer part of our brain. So, and that tends to be where we live. We kind of live here, and we live back in the survival limbic system. So when we are able to quiet this part of the mind, there's a larger sense of mind, and that's that mind body heart connection. It's more spacious, and it allows in, it has more flexibility, allows in information that you wouldn't have gotten from thinking.
That's interesting.
What was your experience when you felt like you got into your mind?
Well, when I do it, I meditate every day, and I've had 8 surgeries now throughout the last 10, 12, 13 years. I've had 8 different surgeries. They got me in a wheelchair. We talked about that a little before we started the interview. And in part of my healing, I got into meditation to help me to manage my pain, to manage my situation, and to help heal, focus and visualized on healing quicker, on what needed to be healed, and so forth. So each time that I go into, and I still meditate every day, even if I'm getting stressed or anxious, I meditate. So my process is to go a place in my mind that I can relax. I'm from Colorado. I grew up in the mountains, so I miss that. I'm living in the desert now, and so I go there, or I go to Hawaii, because Hawaii, Maui, as we said before we started, is my go-to place. I'll pick a place that we went to, either grew up or in Hawaii, and I put myself there and I listen to the trees and listen to the birds, and I look at the trees, and I try to um, visualize and resense the smells and the sounds and the water and everything, so that I can relax and stop thinking about the pain and stop thinking about the circumstances around it, about what I need to get done, as opposed to what I want to get done. And so probably more from that perspective, I allow my opportunity for me to relax. It's kind of like the first time that my daughter told me, when I asked her what she wanted for her wedding present, in lieu of we're paying for the wedding, but I said, what do you want for a present? And she said, I want you to walk me down the aisle. It was I love my family, first and foremost. My wife and both my children have been fantastic in this journey, from the time I got injured, from the time I was in recovery, from the time I was in a wheelchair for 4 years. They've been through the whole thing, every operation. So I need to say that out loud. But the motivation kind of jolted me into some reality, and to start really being in the moment and saying, I got to stop feeling sorry for myself. I got to start moving forward. I got to stop, thinking of what they're telling me, that I'd be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, and put myself in the moment at the moment. So that's kind of what meditation does for me. I can sit down, I can relax, I can breathe. I take deep, slow breaths. I do very calculated breaths. I take myself to those places, and then I allow myself to visualize what I need to do to move myself forward from whether it be a painful day, because I still go through pain. I still have chronic pain, and things like this, into to kind of go forward in a positive way. So if that helps, does that make sense?
Positive mindset. You're changing. So let me retract a little bit. It sounds like there's 2 things. One is using meditation to again, it is part of the quieting that mind patterning that's saying, I can't do this. I'm always going to be in a wheelchair. This is my life. I can't, I just, that desperate feeling that we all feel I always try to kind of give that part of my brain a name. I've been calling her Karen, or I'm like, okay, you need to just leave the room for a while. But there is a power to breath work and meditation, and the power is like allowing that it can just be part of in the room. Karen, go to the corner. She's going to continue to talk, but there is a practice of falling back into awareness. And that's where you find when you're using your visualization, you're falling back into awareness that is always there. And we can call it spirit, or we can call it awareness. It is the awareness of life. So when we fall back into that, and what you're doing with visualization is these are happy, like easeful places. So then you're bringing in this sensation, emotional, positive sensation into that awareness space. So in that awareness space, we have more room. We're not just identified with this tight physical form that we believe that we are. There's so much power in that space. So yes, I mean, that's what breath work, the breath work I do, does it very clearly, because it's a very active breath. It's not just breathing in deep and breathing out slow. It's a very active, it kicks up your nervous system so that you can, that part of the brain gets really quiet really fast, and you can fall back more quickly into awareness, or into like a higher conscious space, so that you can then start bringing in what you're saying, like either positive thought, or you can also just be releasing, even hearing more clearly some of the negative thoughts that like live in your body, that are stored in your body, or grief that's been stored, anger that's been stored, so you can release it out. I find it to be such a powerful practice. It's one of my main practices, along with meditation.
Yeah, it sounds like I have some more learning to accomplish, to go a little more deeper with the breath work. It sounds like
you're doing a really great job. Everyone can, like, whatever is going to help you in your understanding, however you need to identify it, is, I tell people, this is your life, whatever practices that make sense to you, and however you're going to look at it is the best way to live your life.
Well, I appreciate that. It changed my life in a very positive way, and it's allowed me to look at life from a different perspective, and one that I think is more enjoyable and more, again, I have bad days. I'm not going to lie, but on those bad days, I take a breath, and I stop and sit for a minute, and realistically, I'm not on any medication. I do everything through diet and through my natural approach to my healing, and I'm grateful for that, 100%. I'm grateful that I was able to move into that mode of feeling, and it also has allowed me to look more. You mentioned the thing about grief. That's why it took me 45 years to understand what happened and why my father died, and and let that go, which I hadn't been able to do for quite some time. 45 years. So
yeah. Well, that's, again, it's like that message that we're not broken. It's just a slow understanding of how we're wired, and sometimes it takes a lifetime.
45 years.
Or more. And it might continue to come up. That's what that acceptance is what I've been really holding in my own experience recently, of being like, just the acceptance of maybe this is a lifetime. And that's totally fine. Yeah.
Well,
Some days it doesn't feel like it.
For the listeners out there, I was, at 45 years, I was one when this started. So so I don't give my age away too much. We have, excuse me, your purpose for creating Makia Rising. Again, I love the connection. I couldn't wait for you to tell me about that, especially because it came from Hawaii. So you created Makia Rising, and help me understand why you put all this into place, because you have a mission in life, don't you?
Yeah, I just wanted to create a space that that's for healing, or to just show up as your authentic self, like just a space that people could be seen and heard, and receive what they need to receive from me. And because I had three pillars of my practice, one being massage therapy, and that's how I got into this work. And then over the years, I realized that I wasn't just interested in the physical healing, that I wanted to know people at a deeper level, and that some of the pain that arises in tight muscles actually is coming from a different level, emotional, energetic level. So that's why I got interested in breath work, guiding, and that was very transformational in my own process. And then eventually transformational coaching. So I wanted a space that could hold all three pillars, and people could choose how they wanted to work with me. And then that word just kind of fell into my lap, Machia, and I thought had such a beautiful ring to it, but also it's just so true of where your energy goes. So that, and then I was doing a breathwork session with myself, and that my energy was just like pulsing and rising out of my body, and so that the second half came together, Makia Rising.
So that had to be an amazing feeling when that happened. I think that it's like the first time I actually, when I walked my daughter down the aisle, that's the way I felt, because it was tough and it was hard, but and I'm about to get emotional, so I got to stop for a second talking about it. But the realization like that really must have felt good to come to this. The Makia Rising is something that I think we could all kind of take our own Makia Rising internally. I think if we can come to a position in our life where we understand where we're coming from, mixing our mind, our body, our soul, and understanding hardship and grief are part of our life, but we can always move past it and forward from it. And we have an opportunity to do so in a very positive way. And Makia Rising and your pillars, I think, help to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I really just want my passion is to help people wake up to life, whatever avenue they're going to be going through. I mean, sometimes, especially through this pandemic, it's been such a special honor I visit people in their homes. I live here in Boston, Massachusetts, and I travel to people's homes, all safe, COVID safe, but there's a lot of people, especially elderly, that have been really, really isolated, and they literally just need touch and care to their body. And talk about somatic healing. It's really,
It'll be satisfying.
very healing for the nervous system to just have connection, physical connection. And then again, also with transformational coaching, I mean, people are going through such transitions right now. There's a lot of things that are falling away and new things that are arising, and they just need help and guidance along that path. And then breathwork healing. I mean, it's such a beautiful practice to get in touch with yourself and do some deep healing. So I just feel honored to be part of anyone's journey, and however you need to be doing it that day. So
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's
yeah.
a great mission. That's a great mission for you to have in life. I think that, in my career, I had the fortunate and unfortunate opportunity to see where people were left alone, or they were secluded and they didn't have anybody else for that compassion, that humanity. And people forget that we are human. We need touch. We need the physical feeling of somebody else being around us and listening to us, seeing us. Hugging is a wonderful
Mm-hmm.
thing. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, just, we have to take the time to think that there are those out there that we should reach out to, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we literally need it. Our nervous system needs a frontal connection with other humans to thrive. So that's very important. And I think during this whole pandemic, the intensity of trauma that's happened in the last few years of us worldwide not knowing what the heck was going on day to day,
Yeah.
moment to moment, and still, like, now it's all back to normal, and it's like, well, what is normal anymore? And yet we're holding all this trauma from this experience and of being isolated,
Yep.
of not having that human contact. So I don't know. I just totally tangented, but yeah,
That's all right.
it's very, very important. Or what I was going to say, like, people not knowing why their anxiety was kicked up, why these
Yeah.
emotions were more exposed, and it's true. We definitely need that contact, that human contact, to be functioning properly.
Well, let's talk about how they can get a little bit of human contact, some of that compassion, humanity, and transformation from you.
Oh, well, great. Yeah, there's many ways that you can work with me. If you go to my website, you'll see you can work with me one-on-one, and that those kind of treatments would be specialized to what you're going through specifically. I do hold breathwork groups monthly, and I have one coming up April 10th. So you can check that out there. And then also, I think in the show notes, we're going to talk about, or I'll be more specific, but I'm going to be holding a community group with two other coaches starting April 5th, I believe. It's going to be a 5-week group, and absolutely free. It's just going to be a community group to kind of explore yourself, and a place that you can be seen and heard, and talk with other people. And so we'll make sure to have that information. But you can also just reach out to me through Makia Rising to learn more.
And what's the name of your website, please?
Makia Rising, MakiaRising.com.
That's outstanding. And obviously, the people watching this, you can take a screenshot of this, and I'll make sure that all of that information will be in the show notes, including the information about your both your events that are coming up in April. So those will be available for you people to either register or get in touch with you in regard to that.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you coming on the show. This is one more thing before you go. So is there any words of wisdom that you'd like to share before we leave?
Oh, yes. I mean, really, all that I was talking about is, just try to live your life as fully as possible. And that can be so simple. It's just literally waking up in the day and being grateful for having that day, and asking yourself, like, what wants to move through me? Like, how wide and how available and how alive can I be today? And just find out, play, bring joy into your life. The simplest things like cooking dinner can just be enlivened when we're awake. So I just encourage people to wake up, because this life is so precious.
Those are amazing words of wisdom. I really appreciate it. Tara, thank you very much again for spending the time with us. And one more thing before you go, I thank you for transforming people's lives into a very positive direction. I really appreciate what you do, and I'm thankful and grateful for you for what you do. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, thank you for joining us on the show today. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I need to tell you about Tara's 2 events coming up in April. She's got a 5-week community group via Zoom that runs from April 5th through May 3rd. And then she's got another one called Come Home to Yourself Breathwork Healing Group, which is April 10th. For more information on each one of these things, you can either go to her website at makiarising.com/events, or I will have links for you in the show notes here on this episode. You can look for them there or on the website, beforeyougopodcast.com. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Thing Before You Go, a unique conversation about life. If you like our show and want to know more, check out our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. That's beforeyougopodcast.com. Tell your story, share your expertise, contribute to the blog, and subscribe to the newsletter. You can find us as well as subscribe to the program and rate us on your favorite podcast listening platform.
And one more thing before you go. Have a nice day, have a nice week, and thanks for listening.
One More Thing Before You Go, a unique conversation about life podcast, is a creation of One More Thing Productions, established 2010, all rights reserved.